my VIP early, and this is what it says to me. It tells me that I'm never ever alone. I'm learning how JESUS came down to us and gave his best. Without a doubt, the best friend you'll ever know. Our God knows exactly what I need, so I remember this. Let's go! When you ask, he cares. When you see, he's there. When you knock, 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 God opens up the door. When you ask, he cares. When you see, he's there. When you knock, 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 God opens up the door. I'm living life, VIP early, and this is what it says to me. It tells me that I'm never ever alone. I'm living how JESUS came down to us and gave his best. I am down the best friend you'll ever know. Our God knows exactly what I need, so I remember this. Let's go! When you ask, he cares. When you see, he's there. When you knock, 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 God opens up the door. When you ask, he cares. When you see, he's there. When you knock, 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 God opens up the door. Oh, when you ask, he cares. When you see, he's there. When you knock, 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 God opens up the door. When you ask, he cares. When you seek, he's there. When you knock, 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 God opens up the door. Let's go! When you ask, he cares. When you see, he's there. When you knock, 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 God opens up the door. When you ask,
하나님께서 너와 언제나 함께 하시니 너는 하나님의 사랑 아름다운 하나님의 사랑 나는 널 위해 기도하며 내 길을 축복할 거야 너는 하나님의 선물 사랑스러운 하나님의 열매 주의 품에 꼭 피운 나무가 되어줘 나무가 되어줘
This is the light of mine, and I'm gonna let it shine. This is the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This is the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I was on my feet, and I will have my hands and shout, shout, shout. I will run around, and I'll jump off the ground and shout, shout. I was on my feet, and I will have my hands and shout, shout. I will run around, I'll jump off the ground and shout, shout. This is the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This is the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This is the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And I was on my feet, and I will clap my hands and shout, shout. I will run around, and I will jump the ground and shout, shout. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus is the light, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Okay, let's take a look at our message for today. It's Solomon's Temple. Let's take a quick check of our week. How many of us have prayed during the week? Yes, yes. Shout. Remember our shout, shine your light and shout. How many of you read the word in the Bible last week? Yes. Oh no, I turned it off. Sorry. I was so excited. I turned it off. Yes. So basically, to shine our light, we want to listen carefully to the message, pray during the week and to read the Bible during the week. Okay? So those are the things that we want to do to become a strong light. Alright. Our big idea, let's read it together. Ready? God's presence is near to those who love and faithfully follow Him. So God's love is where? Near who? Near who? Near who? Who are sleeping? Near who love Him. Near who love Him and faithfully follow Him. So if you love and follow God's words, He is going to be there. He is near you. Okay. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain you. How much less this house that I have built. So this is the memory verse from 1 Kings 8:27. And we're going to learn what house that he built. Okay? The title is, what was the title? King David had a son. Remember our King David that was running away?
The wise one.
And he ran away and he became a king. He actually had a son. Who stole the Ark of the Covenant? Only speak if you know the answer. Who stole the Ark of the Covenant? Remember who David was fighting while he was running around? What was that army? You know? Very close. The ending is a little different. What is it? Philistines stole the Ark of the Covenant. Remember that was the other army that kept attacking the kingdom. So David continued to fight them off. He was from where, when David was a little boy, he fought who? The giant. The giant soldier was from that army. He was one of the biggest person in that army. And he fought them off since he was a little boy with the slingshot. Okay? So the Philistines stole the Ark of the Covenant. God allowed this, even though God gave the Ark to His people, Israelite. God let the Philistines steal the Ark because, why? Because, why? Why do you think? Why did God let His people lose and get the Ark stolen? What happens if God lets somebody win over His people? Because, why? What did they do?
They sinned, so
They sinned. What was their sin? Remember, if you think back, I know it's been a while, think back to before David, or when David became king, and all these things. One of the biggest sin they did was what? They built a false God, thank you, Nathan. They built a false God, and they say, this is our God. That was not our God, right? Our God is not in a statue, but they built a statue and they worshipped it, and so God was very upset. He was very angry, and He said, I need to get their attention back. I need Israelites to know, I need my people to know that I am the God and I control things. So God just let them loose. So now what happens when they lose? What happens when they lose? They go back to God and say, please help us. Right? So their focus goes back to God because they need help. So it was God's punishment for their faithlessness. So they were not faithful to God. So God let the enemies win. And not because to say, ha ha, you don't listen to me, so I'm going to punish you. That wasn't God's intent. God wanted them to wake up and realize that their God is the real God that has the power to control everything. Just remember last week we talked about how we forget when our life is the brightest, how when everything is going right, we forget to thank God, we forget to think about God. So that's the same thing. When everything was going right, these people, God's people, forgot that God was the only God they had to worship. So they decided to build things, idols, to make, to worship. So that's why God wanted their attention back. God wanted them to realize He was the only living God that they needed to focus on. So when they lost, obviously because something went wrong, they woke up and they decided to go back to God. Okay? All right, instead of King David, who did God say would build his temple. So now after they got the ark back and everything was back to being good, right? Now King David wanted to build a temple for God. Not that little ark that he's been carrying. He wanted to build a big temple to put the ark in so that God can dwell in it. But God says, no, David, I don't want you building it. Who does He want to build the temple? Go ahead.
Solomon.
King Solomon, right? His son, Solomon, says, I want your son Solomon to build it because he is a new start, right? He did not fight any of the wars. He was still young when this happened. So he said, your son, King Solomon, well, future King Solomon, is going to build the temple for me. Now, if you were planning to do something really, really nice for your friend, and then your friend said, no, I don't want you to make it. I want that friend to make it. Would that make you feel better? Would that make you feel good? No. You wanted to do something really nice, Hannah, and your friend said, no, Hannah, I don't want it from you. I want it from Leah. How would that make you feel? Would that make you sad? Yeah. When God told King David, I don't want the temple from you. I want it from Solomon. How would that make David feel? Sad. King David would have been really sad too. But did he get angry and say, no, I'm going to build it? Was that his reaction? No. No. He was very obedient. He worshiped God, and he was still obedient, and he accepted that it wasn't him that was supposed to build the temple. It was his son. So he helped along the way. How much bronze did King David order for the construction of the temple? Bronze is a very strong metal, very expensive, and yet he ordered a lot and lots, enough so that they cannot what?
Build the temple.
They could build the temple, but they had enough. Well, they could not what?
Wait, no way.
Yeah, they couldn't even weigh it because there was so much of it. They couldn't figure out how much it was. Like they couldn't even figure out how much they had. So they had a whole lot of our bronze to build this temple for God. All right. So King David was probably sad that he wasn't given a chance to build it, but he still obeyed, and he was going to help his son Solomon to build the temple. So remember, look, there's Solomon. He's very young still, maybe about your age or maybe a little older. So he didn't know what to do yet. So David helped him, right, guide him, but he let his son build the temple. All right, how long did it take for Solomon to build the temple? Who remembers this one? It took a really long time.
7 years.
7 years? Nathan?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Yeah. It took 7 years to build the temple.
What?
So, how long does it take you to graduate elementary?
6.
6, some 5, right? It's still, so you go into kindergarten, and it wasn't even built, even after you graduate, you go to middle school, and he's still working on it. That's how long it was. It was really, really long time that he is trying to build this temple. Solomon had an idea what he wanted to do. He could have made a quick temple, like it's just building a building, right, a temple. He could have done it really quickly. But he wanted to do the best. He wanted to make the best temple there is for the king. So it took a really, really long time to build this temple. Okay, what filled the temple after the Ark of the Covenant was brought inside? So they finally finished it. They took the Ark inside, and what filled the temple? Cloud, fog, very, very thick clouds and fog that they couldn't see anything. It was overflowing. God's presence is so big. Even, it doesn't matter how big this temple was, how great this temple was, it was way too small for God's presence, right? It overfilled. So the great cloud filled the temple, showing God how big and mighty God's presence was. All right. Can you pour a gallon of milk into a teacup? So here's a teacup. There's a teacup. You have a gallon of milk. Can we put all of this in here?
No.
No. What happens if I can try to put them all in here?
It overflows.
It overflowed. That's what had happened. The clouds came out. It overfilled the temple. God's presence was so big, it could not be contained. All right, so just like the teacup, the temple could not hold completely God's presence. What was something that could, or someone that could completely hold God's presence? Who do we know that was here on earth that was equal to God? Had completely all of God's presence. It was Jesus, yes. Jesus is the only one. He is the only temple that could fill God's glory. He is the only one that was equal to God. That's why he was able to come and help us. That was how he can come and help us to get rid of our sin and go back to God and live with God in heaven. All right, what did Solomon pray God's people would do? What does Solomon want for his people?
For them to be saved.
To be saved. How can you be saved? By praying, by listening to God. If you stay with God, there will always be saved. And he knew that. So Solomon prayed that God's people would follow his word. Whose word? Who is he? Who is he? God's word and purposes. So if you follow God's plan and read God's words and follow his word, you are always going to be saved. Think of the best day in your life. How long do you feel good from this day? So think back to when was your best day of your life, and how long did that feeling last? Do you still feel that way? Like it's still your best day? Not really. How long did it last? One day? 1 week? Did that memory last you a whole month? If it was really, really excellent, maybe. If you went to like what?
1 year.
1 year? It lasted you 1 year? What was your best memory that lasted 1 year? Ah, you must really love your kindergarten teacher. Yeah, so maybe a trip to Disneyland, a trip to Florida, when it snowed on Christmas, something like that really exciting that rarely happens, and that memory could last a long time, but it does not last forever, does it? Same thing. This glorious day of temple being filled with God really excited the people of Israelites, but it's not going to last. King Solomon knew it's not going to last. They're going to forget soon that God is with them, that God is this big presence in their life, that they're going to forget soon. So he prayed that his people will continue to remember, continue to think of God, and stay with God. Right? So that is what he wanted them to do. Continue to renew that memory so that you don't forget. Okay. Solomon knew that people would soon forget, so he wanted them to continue following God by reading his words and praying every day. And that's what we are doing, right? We are practicing to pray every day and to read his words every day so that we don't forget what God did for us, so that we don't forget that exciting, that wonderful gift that God gave us through Jesus, right? So we want to remember that every single day. All right, how did God make the temple holy? What did God do to make the temple holy? He put He says, this is my temple. He put what? If it's something's yours, you put what on it? Your name, your label of your name on it. So God put his name on it, and he says, it's there forever. This is my temple forever. Okay? So he put his name on it. He honored the temple by putting his name on it. All right, let's read this. Well, actually, one person read it. Who wants to read it? Joanna.
Solomon promised to Lord and his father King David that he would build the temple. Solomon took his promise seriously, and he built the most
Spectacular.
spectacular building. He was
Capable.
capable of to serve as God's house.
It's the same thing. That's what we want to do. We want to do the very best we can. Not just, oh, I'll get to it when I remember. I'm too tired today. I'm not going to put it off. We don't want to do that. We don't want to give leftover to God. We want to give him the very best. Okay? Our very best energy, our very best love for God. So we want to do something. When we love something, we're so very eager to do it. Right? When we love something, we want to do it. That's how you want to be reading the Bible, talking to God. Because you love God, and you want to show that by giving him the very best. We do not want to give God our leftover time. That is not what he wants, and that's not what he deserves. What we want is our very best posture, our very best clear head, and our heart, our very best, very best heart on fire for God, right? That's what we want. We want to show him that we love him very much. Just like King Solomon gave his very best and took 7 years to build this one temple, we want to do that too. We want to give him the very best so that God would be pleased, that God would put his name on you, that God would say, this is my child. Okay? This is the child that I love. Okay, that's what we want. Alright, our big idea. Ready? God's presence is near to those who love and faithfully follow him. So if you love him, you follow him. You follow him, he is always there. Right? But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Did God dwell on the earth?
Yeah.
He did. In what form? Through Jesus. Behold, heaven and the highest heaven cannot contain you. How much less this house that I have built. So even though he did very best, this is just a building, it's a house, and he knew that's not going to be able to hold God. But God went there. He still went there because he was pleased with the effort that Solomon put in.